So one of my least favourite moments of all Monster Hunter is...
Yes. Alright. Can't wait for your reaction to this, Dino.
A few moments later.
Oh boy! It's a pink version of the same monster.
No fucking respect. Absolutely no respect.
Somebody just fucking spray painted a Rathian and you're acting like it's the biggest thing that's ever happened.
I'm glad he's come a long way and learnt a lot and grown since then. Hello then, my fellow hunters! You may be asking yourself, that was a great moment, but hey, why are you reminding me of it? Please, inform me, I need to know!
Tell me now!
And I, to that have to say, okay, calm down, bloody hell. I wanted to talk about the notion of subspecies and or variants, etc, in Wilds. Now those two are like the chief one, with rare species sort of in the fringe, the core three. Other games have brought in special categories like your deviants or your afflicted monsters, but generally speaking, in a bubble, the versions of monsters that we get, and Wilds. Because I was sat there just kind of looking at the launch rosters for games like Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate, for Base World, for Base Rise, and when I got to World, I saw oh yeah, we did have Pink Rathian, Azure Rathalos, Black Diablos, just a little smattering, so new players could get an idea that you can get different versions of the same monster. Wait a minute, what's that going to be like in Wilds? And here we are, talking about it. I know, an absolutely ludicrous train of thought, but here we are. Because I feel like in Wilds, by its very nature, we could get some, and, excuse me here, wild subspecies / versions of monsters. And by excuse me, I mean don't excuse me, because I'm not in any way sorry. And that's chiefly because of the setting. Right? Like, it is very specifically an unexplored forbidden lands where quite literally anything goes. Where monsters have evolved and adapted in ways that we have never seen. This more raw, quite literally monstrous visage, and even completely new life form categories, like the Black Flame will undoubtedly be, unless it's an Elder Dragon, but hey, you get what I'm saying. So when it comes to versions of things we could see, I think it's probably one of the most exciting Monster Hunter games of all time for possibilities within that. First and foremost though, the question to answer is it even likely to get any alternate monster versions on the base low high rank version before we move into master, which is when you do tend to see a lot. Think of Sunbreak, we immediately got a subspecies for everything except Gosharag, who was forgotten and left behind despite being the best boy. And that's kind of a consistent-ish theme that the subsequent version of the same game does like to fill out with new takes on existing monsters. But that said, the base versions do tend to get something. World, as I said, with Black, Pink, and Azure, but even something like Base Rise, while not having any strict subspecies, did come loaded with the Apex versions of the monsters, which are most certainly official alternate versions, even if they were just a little bit watered down deviants. But then you look at that and think, okay, every Apex monster was a version of a returning monster. We didn't get any instant new takes on already new monsters. In World, it was classic subspecies on classic monsters, and they weren't new ones, they were just some solid ones to show that it's a thing. So the idea of getting a new version of a new monster seems a little bit unlikely. Even if we go back and look at Monster Hunter 4, where we got Nursilla, the Temnocerans, we got Jarala, the Snake Wyverns, none of them had instant other versions for us. Instead, again, it was the kind of classics coming back. We got Red Kezu, we got Purple Gypsaros, bloody gypsaros. Black Gravios made an appearance, which is just one of the more cooler subspecies, at least aesthetically. I really do love him, and ever since I brought it up in one of the previous discussions, I've really been kind of liking the idea of seeing a modern Gravios, but that's by the by. The point I'm making is that while it would be cool, the precedent for new versions of new monsters instantly isn't there. But could you imagine a Wilds where we immediately get, like a water, to use title as the framework, version of Raidao? Have a little Apex element switcheroo around the maps. I don't think that's going to happen, but it certainly would be fun. I do think, though, that modern Monster Hunter is definitely more shying away from new versions of existing monsters launching with the base game alongside that new monster for the first time. Which leads us then to returning monsters getting a fresh new take, or indeed their already existing subspecies, etc., adding to the pile. So we know we've got Yankutku, we know we've got Congalala, and we know we've got Rathalos. The actual confirmed returning roster is fairly small, I guess Rathian too. So will we see another Azure, another Pink? I kinda hope not. It would be a little bit okay. I guess that's fine. I mean, it does give more to hunt, and I don't think putting Azure Rathalos in comes at the cost of anything else. So I guess in that sense it's fine, but it's not terribly exciting in both concept and the hunt. Then Congalala. Him immediately getting Emerald Congalala would be quite fun, but it's not, like, groundbreaking in any kind of way, so is that entirely worth it? There is something to go outside the realm of mainline Monster Hunter. Gold Congalala, which I really like as a take on it, and this was a lone species from Monster Hunter Online, and quite powerful relative to being a Congalala. It's very much possible, but I'd like to see a new take on Congalala. Because I think when you bring back a loved monster, but not necessarily one that, is a headliner by itself, sorry Congalala, but then upgrading him into a much greater threat later on, in a way that's truly menacing, like Acidic Glavenus did in Icepawn, could be really entertaining. Yankutku has blue Yankutku, which isn't exactly the most ridiculous thing in the world, and I think Yankutku, out of all the returning monsters we currently know about, probably would get the most out of having a really interesting new version to really turn things up. I think he deserves it, and I could totally see him coming packaged in Wilds with a much harder Super Kutku that isn't a pack creature like we know the base Yankutku are in a later map. An element swapped one too. And I already kind of mentioned it a little bit in my list from for Nursilla and Shrouded Nursilla. We saw webs on the back of the oil well basin, and we know that's consistent with what Nursilla likes to do from previous maps. So her arriving alongside instantly shrouded, or indeed a new version, could be really interesting. I definitely don't think that they're going to go to the effort of bringing the Temnoseren model over to the 6th gen and really upgrading it to the kind of fidelity and smoothness it needs to have in Wilds to only use on Lala Barina, but that's a discussion for another time. In any case, I think it would be definitely a shame if base Wilds didn't have something as a take on monsters. And I think the obvious one that I'm kind of building to here is something I've touched on before, which is the alternate versions might not be versions of monsters that are in the game, but versions of monsters that aren't in the game. The category of monsters isn't going to be subspecies or variants. The extra new bonus category of monster in Wilds is going to be extinct species. Arkveld, a member. Potentially the Black Flame, a member. Potentially the Binding Force, Sommelt, that the people on the Windward Plains talk about a member. So technically these are, well, they're extinct, but their ancestors might be alive, so they're versions in that sense. So we might actually have a situation where, yes, of course, the new Monster Hunter game is going to have other categories of monsters within it, but instead of your regular subspecies variants, we just get a new official one, and the introduction of extinct species that can get new members throughout the rest of Monster Hunter generations to come over the years. Then we do have the kind of, well, rounding out question of, is it actually something that's worthwhile? Is it something that you want? Is it something that you would be disappointed if it didn't happen? Is there a worthwhile space to immediately explore subspecies and such in Wilds, or just let the base versions of all the monsters returning anew shine for a while, at least until the title update territory, and then a master rank expansion beyond that? Because of course title updates are always very much a potential for this kind of thing. We saw that a lot in A World in Iceborne and even Rise and Sunbreak, so that's something to consider. And then lastly, we do have whatever the endgame will be. Afflicted monsters, apex monsters, tempered monsters. I assume there will be monsters that come with Wilds to give us a challenging hunting experience once you reach the end of the story and to start progressing and farming decorations or talismans, whatever they go with, and that seems inevitable. So those versions of monsters, while not strictly subspecies, as, you know, an afflicted X monster isn't an entirely new version, it's just afflicted, but there is certainly that element to it to think about. I personally lean on the side of I would prefer, I think every monster just gets to be its base version with no other competing versions, and then we can introduce them through Master Rank expansion and title updates. But I do maintain that Wilds as a concept, the story, the world, the location of it, does open us up to, I think, some absolutely fantastically creative subspecies and so on options, and I would love to see them get actually explored whenever it is that happens. And I would love your guys' thoughts on that too. For now then, like you've enjoyed this, subscribe and hit the bell for more, consider supporting the future of the channel on Patreon down below, and until we meet again, a goodbye.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.